谢谢发言人。湖北广电记者提问：日前，阿富汗西部发生严重的地震灾害，已造成2445人死亡、近万人受伤和大量财产损失。中方已表示将根据阿方需求，提供力所能及的救灾援助。请问发言人是否有进一步的信息可以提供？谢谢。
作为阿富汗的友好邻邦和真诚朋友，中方对阿富汗人民遭受的地震灾难感同身受。我们已经在各层级向阿方表达慰问，通过各种渠道向阿方施以援手。中国红十字会已经决定向阿富汗红新月会提供紧急人道主义现汇援助。中方将根据阿方的需求，继续向阿富汗提供力所能及的援助，帮助阿富汗人民渡过难关。下一个问题。
总台 CGTN 记者提问：以色列同巴勒斯坦加沙地带武装组织冲突持续，造成双方大量的人员伤亡，请问中方对此有何评论？谢谢。
中方高度关注近来巴以冲突持续升级，对冲突造成平民伤亡感到十分痛心，反对和谴责伤害平民的行为。中方反对扩大冲突、破坏地区稳定的行动，希望尽快停火止战，恢复和平。国际社会应切实发挥作用，共同推动局势降温。解决巴以冲突循环往复的出路在于恢复和谈，落实两国方案，推动巴勒斯坦问题早日通过政治方式实现全面妥善解决，使各方的合理关切得到保障。中方将继续同国际社会一道，为此做出不懈努力。下一个问题。
Next one, please.
谢谢发言人。总台央视记者提问：这次的以巴冲突规模超过过往，外交部是否掌握在当地的中国人、华人受影响的情况，将向他们提供一些帮助？外交部已经第一时间启动了领事保护应急机制，协调开展在巴勒斯坦、以色列的中国公民和机构的安全保护工作。中国驻以色列使馆和驻巴勒斯坦办事处已经发布了紧急安全提醒，保持着同在当地中国公民的联系，尽全力保障中国公民和机构的安全。在此，我们也提醒中国公民暂勿前往巴勒斯坦和以色列，请在当地的中国公民密切关注当地安全形势，强化安全防范措施，避免外出。如遇紧急情况，请及时与使馆和办事处联系，寻求帮助。
If they are in emergency. Next one, please.
下一个问题。
Thank you. O Globo Brazil. The attacks committed on Saturday by the Islamic group Hamas has left over 700 deaths, most of them civilians, according to the report, and also dozens of kidnapped people who were taken to Gaza. My question is, does the Chinese government consider those acts terror acts?
中方已经就当前这个巴以局势升级表明立场，我们对紧张局势加剧和暴力升级深表关切。对于冲突造成平民伤亡感到十分痛心，我们反对和谴责伤害平民的行为。我们认为当务之急是尽快停火止战，恢复和平，共同推动局势降温。
Next one, please.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Mrs. Spokesperson. My name is Mahdi Faraj. I'm from Rudao Media Network. I have two questions. Question number one, what is the nature of your current relationship with both Iraqi and Kurdistan regional government? If I may add that, why we haven't seen any Iraqi Prime Minister and Kurdish leaders in Beijing in recent years? Second question, China is an important actor in Middle East and it could play a big role in resolving issues in the region. So as you have a strong relationship with Syria and Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, and recently you hosted him in China, how could you help to resolve the Kurdish issue in Syria in the frame of Syrian sovereignty? Thank you.
帮助解决叙利亚。
首先回答你的第一个问题，关于中国同伊拉克的关系。中国和伊拉克两国建有战略伙伴关系。近年来，双方保持着密切的高层交往，各领域的交流合作取得了积极成果。2019年，伊拉克总理阿卜杜勒马赫迪率团访华，取得了圆满成功。去年12月，习近平主席在出席首届中国阿拉伯国家峰会期间，同伊拉克的总理苏达尼成功会晤。就深化新时期两国关系的发展达成了重要的共识。下阶段，中方愿同伊拉克中央政府和各级地方政府加强交流合作，不断充实中伊战略伙伴关系的内涵。你的第二个问题关于中国和叙利亚的关系。中国和叙利亚两国呢有着传统的深厚友谊，建交67年来，两国关系一直保持着健康稳定的发展。日前，叙利亚总统巴沙尔来华出席杭州亚运会的开幕式，习近平主席等中方领导人同他举行了会见，就双边关系和共同关心的问题深入交换了意见。两国元首宣布双方建立战略伙伴关系，中方认同叙方一道，在两国元首的战略引领下，持续深化两国政治互信和各领域的合作，推动中国和叙利亚的关系再上新台。下一个问题。
Syria relations. Next one, please. Thank you.
Hi, this is Alan Wand from Bloomberg News.
Yes, you first.
我半岛电视台。西方。
Where is the question from?
您是来自哪一个媒体
？Okay. Sorry, you will be next. Okay.
您下一个提问可以吗？
Yes,
it's Alan Wong from Bloomberg News. Can you tell me if President Xi Jinping will meet Senator Schumer and the 5 other senators who are here in China right now? Also, will Xi and Biden meet at APEC next month in San Francisco?
你这个问题目前我没有可以发布的信息，请你保持关注。下一个问题。
你好，发言人，我半岛电视台的。西方政客和媒体的将巴勒斯坦人的行动称为恐怖主义，但忽略了这次行动是为了反击以色列针对巴勒斯坦人，特别是阿克萨清真寺和中式攻击。以色列驻北京使馆的驻华使馆称中国是以色列的好友，希望中国谴责巴勒斯坦的行为。请问中方对以色列驻华使馆的观点如何回应？另外，目前美国已经宣布了向以色列运送更多的弹药和军事设备，中方对此有何看法？谢谢。
在巴以冲突问题上，中国始终站在公平正义一边。中国是以色列和巴勒斯坦共同的朋友。我们真诚地希望看到巴以能够和平共处，共享安全和发展。
can coexist peacefully for common development. The only way out is to implement the two-state solution and to establish a Palestine nation. As regard to your second question of exports of ammunition, China's position is consistent. We believe that the dialogue and negotiation is the right way out. We hope relevant sides should cease fire immediately to avoid further escalation of the conflict. Thank you. Next one, please.
Yes, please.
The New York Times. Has China already, or will China soon, urge Iran to restrain Hamas, or will China ask Iran to encourage Hamas to release hostages? Thank you.
关于当前的巴以局势，中方已经表明了立场。
The Chinese side has stated our position, and I'd like to take this opportunity to call on relevant parts to cease fire and avoid casualties of civilians. Thank you. Next one, please.
Question for Anadolu Agency. I think we have witnessed a serious escalation of violence this weekend after Hamas's attacks against Israel in the occupied territories. And there are civilian casualties and civilians are being harmed from both sides. For the past year, China was active for a possible resumption of peace talks in the Middle East. So how do you think this escalation of violence will affect China's efforts for the peace process in the region?
首先，刚刚我已经介绍了我们在这个近期最近这个巴以局势，我们的中方的立场和看法。我们对这个冲突造成平民伤亡感到非常痛心，也反对和谴责这种行为。我们认为当务之急是尽快停火，保护平民，防止局势升级。你提到中国在这个中东促成的这种和解、合作和对话，我想沙特和伊朗实现和解带给我们最重要的启示就是，无论问题多复杂、挑战多么尖锐，只要本着相互尊重的精神进行平等对话，就一定能够找到彼此都能接受的解决办法。以暴易暴没有出路。国际社会应当增强紧迫感，加大对巴勒斯坦问题的投入，共同推动巴以双方早日恢复和谈，寻求持久和平之道。中方也将继续同国际社会一道，为此做出不懈努力。
Early rapprochement between the two sides. The Chinese side is willing to work with the international society to scale up our efforts. Thank you. Next one, please.
Thank you, spokesperson. A question from Reuters. The Israeli embassy in Beijing said yesterday that it had expected to see stronger condemnation of Hamas from China, and that it was not a time to call for a two-state solution after Hamas attacked Israel. Does the ministry have any further comment to this? And basically, this remarks from the embassy. Thank you.
刚刚我已经介绍了有关立场，在
I
巴
have
以冲突的
stated
问题上，
China's
中方始
position
终是
on
站
the
在公平正义
Palestine-Israel
的一
conflict.
边。
China has always
我
been
们
on the
是以
right
色列和
side
巴勒
of
斯坦共同
equity and
中
justice
方真诚
and
地希望
determined our
巴以
position.
能够和平共
China
处。
is a friend
但是
to
我们
both
认为实
Israel
现这个
and
愿景的
Palestine.
出
What
路
we
在
hope
于
to
落实
see is the
两
two
国方案。
countries living
当然，
together
针对
in
当前的
peace and
局势，
enjoying
最重要的
security.
是尽
The
快
key
实
to
现
achieving
停火，
that
避
lies in
免伤害
realization
平
of
民，避免局
two-state
势。
solution. Now the key is to ceasefire and avoid escalation and casualty of civilian. Next one, please.
专家认为，目前巴以局势有可能对国际关系造成深远的影响，包括美国和沙特阿拉伯共同防御协议，美国对乌克兰的支持和内的地区安全的形势都会有所变化。中方是否对此有所预案？作为安理会常任理事会，中方会做出什么政治和外交努力？谢谢。
中方和其他各方一样，
The
也在
Chinese
密切
side,
关
like
注局
other
势的发展。
parties,
中
is
方始
following
终认为，
closely the
任何问
situation.
题都
China
应该
always
通过对
believes
话
that
和
the
谈
issues
来寻求妥
should
善的解
be
决。我
resolved
们也认
through
为国际社
dialogue
会
and
应该共同地
negotiation.
维
The
护中东
international
的和平稳
community
定，
should
维护
protect
世界
the
的和平稳
stability
定。
of the
中
Middle
国
East
愿意
and
同
the
有关各方
world.
一道，
China
为此
is
做出
willing to
努力。
work with relevant parties on that. Thank you. Next one, please.
Question for Anadolu Agency. China's special representative for Middle East issue, Jai Jun, had talks I believe during April in Israel and Palestine and talked to different parties. I wonder if Hamas and other groups in Gaza was part of these talks And how do you see these groups can fit in a peace process in the region?
他们将会如何达成？
关于翟俊特使4月份访问中东的情况，
As
我想
regard
当时我们
to
应该已经
Zhai
介绍了，
Jun's
但是
visit
具
to
体的
Middle
情况
East,
目前我
at that
记
time
得
the
不是很
Chinese
清
side
楚。
has already
作为原
stated
则呢，
our
中方一贯主
position.
张，
As
各
regard
方
to
应该
our principle,
实现
China
和解
always
合作，
believes that
通过对话
all
谈判
parties
解决彼
should
此的
cooperate
关切。
together and solve our concerns through dialogue. Thank you.
下一个问题。
Next one, please.
You've talked about the New York Times. You've talked about the importance of the international community gathering and trying to address the Israel-Gaza issue. With world leaders gathering next week in Beijing or soon this month for the Belt and Road Forum, will China try to use that gathering to negotiate some kind of response or resolution of the Israel-Gaza conflict? Thank you.
我刚刚已经讲了，我们愿意同各方
I
保
have
持沟
stated
通，
our
推动
position.
敦促
We are
立
willing
即实
to
现
get
停
in
火
touch。with
我们
all
也愿意继
parties,
续为中
and
东和
we
平稳
call
定
on
做出努
parties to
力。
ceasefire, and we are willing to scale up efforts for the
下一个问题。
peace in the Middle East. Thank you. Next one,
Joe
please.
Lay, Financial Times. U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer
时报
has expressed disappointment with China's response to
中方
the attacks
对
on
哈马斯
civilians,
对
the
以色
kidnapping
列
of
的袭
civilians
击
by Hamas.
表达
Why
表
doesn't
示
China condemn these
阐
attacks?
述了立场，为什么中方没有谴责？
刚刚我讲了，中方这个
I
巴
have
以冲突
stated
造成
that
平民伤亡感到非常痛心。
The
我
Chinese
们也反
side
对
is
和谴
saddened
责对
at
平
the
民的
casualty of
暴力和袭
civilian,
击。
and we are opposed to and
中方这个立场是
criticize
一贯
acts
的，我们
against
认
the
为当务之
civilians.
急是
China's
尽快的实现
attitude
停火
is
止战，恢
consistent.
复
We
和
hope
平。我们也
that
期待国际社会的有关各方
cessation of
能够
war
发挥
should
作用，
be
共同推
made
动
as
局势
soon
降
as
温。
possible. The international community and the relevant parts should work for the cooling down of the
It's been
situation.
reported that a Chinese Israeli woman named Noah
一位叫
was
做
kidnapped
Noah
during
的
a music festival near
在
Gaza
中国
border.
出生的以色列
Is
妇
she a
女
Chinese
被
citizen?
绑架到加沙地区，
And can you
她是不是中国
confirm
公
if she
民？
is?
中方能否
我
证实？
注意到有关报道，我们一贯反对针对平民的暴力和袭击，但是具体情况我不
Violence
是很
and
了
attacks
解。
against civilians, but I have
下一
nothing
个
to
问题。
offer on the specifics. I'm not aware of that. Next one, please.
My question is regarding Turkish military operation in East Syria, in the region under control by Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Force (SDF) for 6 days today. What is Chinese position in this regard? There is a Turkish military operation in that region, East Syria.
军事行动
中
有
方一贯
何立
反
场？
对在国际关系中使用
China
武力。
is always
我们认
opposed
为有关各方应当
to
切实
force
尊重
in the
和维
international
护叙利
community.
亚的主
Relevant
权、独立、
parties
统
should
一和领土
respect
完整。
the sovereignty, territorial integrity of Syria. Thank you.
下一个问题。
Next one, please.
Thank you, spokesperson. Another question from Reuters. The U.S. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who is in Beijing right now, has called on China to support Israel after deadly attacks by Hamas, saying that he was disappointed that Beijing showed no sympathy over the weekend. How does the ministry respond to these remarks? Thank you.
表达同情。外交部对此
中方高度关注近来这个巴
The
以
Chinese
局
side
势
is
冲突
paying
升级，
close
我们
attention
对冲
to
突
the
造成平民伤
escalating
亡感到非
conflict.
常痛心，也反对和
China
谴
is
责
saddened
伤
by
害
the
平民的这
casualty
种
of
行为。
civilian
中方反
and is
对扩大
opposed
冲
to
突、
acts
破
against
坏
the
地区稳
civilian.
定这一立场是一贯的。我们
We
希望
are
各方能
opposed
够
to
尽快
escalation
实
of the
现停火
conflict.
止
This
战，
is
恢复和
consistent.
平。
We
我
hope
们也期待国
relevant
际社会的
parties
有
should
关各
cease
方
fire as soon
发
as
挥作用，
possible,
共
and
同
we
推动
hope
局
that
势降温。
relevant sides in the international community should pitch in to cool down the situation. Thank you.
下一个问题。
Next one, please.
The New York Times, following up on the question a moment ago, have you been able to verify the nationality of the young woman who is said to have been taken away on a motorcycle? Have you been able to verify whether or not she is a Chinese passport holder? Thank you.
我想我的同事正在核实有关情况，所以目
My
前我还没有
colleague
可以
is
提供
checking
的信
this
息。
issue. Now I have nothing to share. Thank you.
下一个问题。
Next one, please.
Are there any Chinese citizens harmed or injured? Do you have any information about this over the weekend?
我们驻以色列的使馆和驻巴勒斯坦办事处正在与当地的中国公民保持联系，尽最大的努力为他们提供协助，尽全力保障他们的安全。
And we will try our best to provide assistance to protect their safety.
下一个问题。
Next one, please.
还有其他问题吗？
Anything else?
发言人好，环球时报记者提问，美国联邦参议员戴安·范因斯坦9月28号逝世，请问中方是否表达了慰问？
Diana Feinstein passed away on
范因斯坦
September
参议员在世
28.
时致力于
Thus, the
中美
Chinese
相
side
互了
sent
解和互利合
condolences.
作。我们对他的不
She
幸逝
is
世
committed to
深
the
切
mutual
哀悼，
understanding and
向他的家
cooperation
人
between
表
the
达
two
诚挚慰问。
sides.
中国中央政治局委员、
We
中央外
express
办
our
主
deep
任、外交部长
condolences
王毅
over the
已
passing
向
and
范因斯坦
extend
参议员的家人发出
sincere
电电。
sympathies. Foreign Minister and the Director of the Office of the Central Commission for Foreign Affairs, Wang Yi, has already sent condolences to her family. Thank you. Next one, please.
请记者打开麦克风。Please turn on your microphone.
I'm sorry, Alan Wan from Bloomberg. Can you tell me when the BRI forum will be taking place? What dates?
我们会适时发布信息，请你保持关注。
We will issue relevant information. Please stay tuned.
下一个问题。
Next one, please.
还有其他问题吗？
Are there any question else?
Just one more question. I think others have asked about whether there were Chinese nationals injured in the conflict in Israel. Were there any deaths already so far? Thank you.
刚刚我介绍了有关情况，我们驻以色列的使馆和驻巴勒斯坦的办事处正在与当地的中国公民和机构保持联系，了解情况，为有需要的中国公民提供协助，尽全力保障他们的安全。
to Chinese in need in order to protect their security. Thank you.
还有其他问题吗？
Are there any question?
那好，今天的记者会到此结束，谢谢大家。
That's the end of today's press conference. Thank you.